Jewel, thank you for joining Healthline today. You are a recording artist with terrific success, 30 million albums sold, 4 Grammy nominations, and your fans know you for wonderful and uplifting music. And a lot of us know you also for your work with mental health. You've got a free site, Jewel, Never Broken, that you launched in 2016. Can you give us a little update on this and how it's going?
Yeah, thank you. I started Jewel Never Broken as an extension of our youth foundation. I moved out when I was quite young. I moved out on my own when I was 15, and I was raised in an abusive background. And I knew that statistically, kids like me end up repeating the cycle. But it was quite depressing to think at 15 that my life was maybe over, in the sense that I was programmed. I was raised with an emotional language, and how would I learn a new emotional language? If my dad was raised in an abusive environment, and then he raised me in an abusive environment, what was my hope of being able to change that? And so I set off on this sort of ambitious mission to learn a new emotional language, and it sent me on an incredible trajectory in my life. And the culmination of that basically is what's on Jewel Never Broken. It's all the exercises that I started to discover over time that would help rewire me neurologically.
Rewire you neurologically. That is sounds like an enormous challenge. What if somebody's coming up from a background like yours, but might not have the resources of a very popular singer-songwriter?
I had no resources, and my real passion is that exact thing, actually. That was what was so daunting to me. You know, at 15, I was paying rent. I was getting myself through school. It was very daunting. I didn't have therapists. I didn't have family structures. I became homeless when I was 18. No therapist, no family structures. I was shoplifting. I was becoming agoraphobic, and I was having panic attacks. And I realized I would die or end up in jail if I didn't figure something out. And so all the tools that I began to develop were through self-exploration. It was me just not killing myself and going, all right, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to kill myself. I'm going to do something different today as an experiment than I did yesterday. I'm going to take notes. And I took very good notes. And through a lot of observation, a lot of curiosity, I began to see patterns and find practicable ways to build new patterns. And that's all neuroplasticity. Well, it's not what neuroplasticity is, but it's what practice lets you do. Lets you take advantage of the fact that our brains are incredibly adaptable. And just because you learned patterns doesn't mean you can't learn different ones. And you don't have to have some fancy support systems. You just have to commit to trying something new and not giving up.
You had a very strong sense of yourself. What about somebody who might need more of an ally? You seem to have been able to do it very well on your own through journaling and being self-aware. How much did allies come into your realm?
You know, for kids with my background, they might relate, but adults weren't people I considered safe. I didn't consider anybody safe. I wouldn't even reach out to friends. I didn't have friends. I was a really isolated young woman by the time I ended up homeless. I ended up homeless because I wouldn't have sex with a boss. Started living in my car, and then my car got stolen. And learning to survive meant my safety meant being alone. That's what I equated safety as. I'm not saying it's the best survival tool. It just is what I was. And so the things I developed had a lot to do through internal exploration. And again, when I founded my youth organization about 18 years ago, we started our foundation, Inspiring Children. My interest was seeing if these exercises that I kind of invented and developed for myself, if they could work for other people, whether they had therapy or not, whether they had helpful family structures or not. And the answer is yes. There is so much hope. There is so much you can do, whether or not you have traditional support structures. You can learn to be there for yourself. If you just promise that you won't quit trying, and it isn't overnight, but it does work. And I've seen it work not only for myself, but for so many kids that have gone from multiple suicide attempts to incredibly happy. You get to see what it looks like on the other side of suicidal ideation. So there's tons of hope. Allies are great. I hope everybody has family that helps them. But if you don't, fear not. There is a ton of hope for you.
Well, you're an inspiration to provide that hope to children at risk. And you mentioned the Inspiring Children Foundation. I learned about your Live from San Quarantine. I read it wrong. I had an album when I was younger, Johnny Cash Live from San Quentin, and I saw that you did something live from San Quentin. Then I had to reread it. No, it's Live from San Quarantine from your bedroom in March. Can you tell us about that project? You raised about $500,000 for the foundation, right?
Yes, so our youth foundation takes at-risk youth of all types and backgrounds, and we teach them entrepreneurial skills. We teach them this mindfulness toolkit that I developed and tennis. And it was very difficult, as it is for a lot of foundations, to have raised money during COVID. And we had a tremendous influx of need. You know, over 90% of our parents, of our children's families, lost their job in the first 2 weeks of the pandemic. It was incredibly difficult to keep our lights on. And so we decided to do a virtual concert, and just out of humor, I called it Live from San Quarantine, because COVID sort of, and quarantine was the new prison, as it were, for the modern age.
Very clever. Well, you use your celebrity to great effect to help people. What about somebody who's not a celebrity, who's an everyday worker, making the rent, making the mortgage payments, putting food on the table? What can they do to help someone with a mental health condition?
Oh my gosh, it doesn't take being a celebrity. In fact, celebrity is a terrible indicator of mental health. The stats for people who are in the public eye for suicide and drug abuse and depression are incredibly high. So probably better that you're not. You know, the thing about mental health is it's an equal opportunist. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care if you're wealthy, in charge of a great company, if you quote unquote have it all, or if you have nothing. It really is something that can affect everybody. And we all have a mind. And for some reason, we're not all taught what to do with it. We're not all taught what to do with our emotions. We're taught dental hygiene, for instance, but we're not taught good emotional hygiene or mental health hygiene. And so everybody can help. You can help yourself by starting to look into what is self-care and what things work for me, and begin experimenting. And if you don't feel better, keep experimenting, because you just haven't quite found that right tool for you yet. And supporting people with mental health issues, a lot of time I like to tell people connection cures. Just connecting. You don't have to have a degree in psychology. You, of course, can look up people that have these degrees. It's important to seek help. But just connection, just listening, just saying, I'm here and I don't know what to say except I love you and I'm here and we'll figure this out. That can save more lives than many, many things.
We are running short on time, and it's a shame, because I'm loving everything you're saying about emotional connections and helping people. I love you is a good way to start. I want to ask you quickly about mindfulness and how that's changed for you during the pandemic, specifically your work with Deepak Chopra last year when you did the mindfulness movement film that involved people and on their journey with mental health. Can you comment on that for a bit?
Yeah, I'm very thrilled that mindfulness is a word that's entered the mainstream. In a way, it's almost become the new Wild West. Everybody is talking about mindfulness. Everybody's a mindfulness expert. I thought it might be good just for us here to create a bit of a container around it and a definition, at least for myself. I define mindfulness as conscious presence. That's it. It's nothing too mysterious. It's being consciously present. And there's tools that help you build being consciously present, being in the moment. Meditation is one of those tools. It's like a bicep curl for learning how to be consciously present longer and longer periods of time. But writing helps you be consciously present. You could do mindful walking in nature, exercise. A lot of things can help you build the muscle of being consciously present. That's step one, building the ability, the muscle to be consciously present. But it's not going to change your life alone. And so you have to find things that I call putting mindfulness into motion. You have to be able to find practices, because practices change lives, right? That changes your neural wiring. We want to be able to practice, not just have a philosophy, not just be calm and meditate for 15 minutes. Once we're calm and present, we have to start now changing behaviors that don't serve us, replacing them with behaviors that do serve us. And that's what my website, Jewel Never Broken, is designed to help you with.
Jewel, mindfulness in motion, building the muscle of being consciously present. You are full of great ideas and recommendations. Healthline thanks you for your commitment to helping people with mental health, especially youth. And Healthline thanks you for being on our broadcast today. Thank you so much, Jewel. It's great talking with you.
Thank you for having me. And to everybody watching, keep your chin up. We got this.
We got this. Thank you, Jewel.